GM, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back. This is a fun and exciting show. I'm telling you right now, I got a mastermind, an OG in the Solana community. Oh man, the amount of games that he has shielded me from his past of what he's played, what he's loved, what he's like to where he is today. I've had deep conversations with about it. And now we're here talking about strategy, talking about real money, real strategies behind games, and essentially the vision behind Web3 and why Web3 gaming is something that, again, really brought him into the space. So without further ado, Evan Ryer, how are you today? How you feeling? How are the vibes? Talk to me. Like what it's like right now in the studio. I know I made you turn the fans off because of the sound. I know it's hot in there, but tell me, is it hot because you guys are just cooking?
You know, you could say that the office is incredibly hot because we are always cooking. It's also a million degrees outside. Turned off all of the fans, so our audio quality would be fantastic for today's discussion. I'm having a great week. You know, acquisitions are they're exciting, they're hard, they're chaotic as hell, and we had a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of paperwork that we were grinding, and caught up on a lot of sleep over the weekend. Still, we have a lot to do. The work is never done, and the next 30 days are similarly going to be a lot of work and really chaotic, but we're having a lot of fun. The Honeyland community is amazing. The Honeyland team is amazing. And so far, the handoff has been really straightforward. The community's welcomed us with open arms. We got a lot that we're eager to share with you. I'll play my cards close to my chest. I always say that. You know, we won't reveal everything right away. And we'll dive into the nitty gritty on the conversation. What's good with you? We saw Off the Grid launching guns on Solana. It's pretty exciting for Solana gaming. What's your sentiment on the space these days, bro?
Yeah, man, I think it's just exciting to be here, right? I think like one of those things I always tell people, good games take a long time to build, right? You know this. Good games take a long time to be able to fully get on it. And I think you probably will agree with what I'm about to say. Us gamers are the most toxic people out there, right? We want fully polished games. We want it all ready. And when we get these beta, when we get these alphas, we don't want to be a play tester. We want, give me the full experience. And sometimes we create the toxicity that exists sometimes even on Twitter timelines. And I think like now that games are finally getting closer and closer to full reveals, launches, and everything like that, we're now starting to see other gamers try to come into this space and understand why we are here and why we were here from the get-go. And so I think it's really one of those great crossing moments between all of it as we eventually, I don't know if this is safe to say, of will Web3 gaming ever be just gaming in general, or will it always have this Web3 parentheses or blockchain or crypto parentheses? Will it be blockchain games or in gaming, a division of it? And I think that, like, man, whatever that direction is, at the end of the day, all we want to do is play games, right? Like, give us games because that's why we came into the space. The financial aspect of it comes on next. Not here for the financial aspect first. It's the game first, right? And so I think that, you know, as we kind of like see the lay of the land, like, yeah, it's just a fun, exciting time to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel because I think we're getting closer.
You know, to rewind a bit, although gaming is the most toxic community, we chose building video games is one of the hardest disciplines in development. It really is. And the deeper you go into game dev, you have, single player games, which are hard to build, but relative to what we choose to build in Web3, which are usually real-time competitive esports, low latency, multiplayer networked games with a promise of hundreds of players in each individual server. That promise is one of the hardest to deliver on products. And again, all of software and development, networking for a multiplayer game is, I don't have the right words to describe the complexity, especially when you need the latency factor to align with the expectation of an esports, especially a real money esport or a risk-based game. And players in gaming have always been toxic. There's nothing more painful than when when people, if people treat a single player game, for example, like a multiplayer game, and I see it happen to ourselves and a lot of our peers, where people have feedback on the product and it's not fair to the developer, because looking at through the lens of the developer, I know how many millions and how many thousands of hours went into that product. Their product is amazing. It's just two small variables away from being amazing. Maybe the players are commenting on like movement mechanics. Movement mechanics are like, oh, that's like a number that you change in the back end. You change a 6 to a 4, and now the game's perfect. And a bad game is a game that doesn't have a good loop, a good retention mechanics, and a core end game, a strong in-game economy. And I don't think it's fair to ever look at some of these amazing games that we have on the timeline and to FUD the developers and their thousands of hours when they're still in development at the end of the day. And Web3 is one of those spaces where people build in public. And in Web2, you don't do that. Usually these firms, they build a game, they do a play test maybe with like a small closed community, and then they launch their final product 5 years later after they spent, $100 million. In Web3, we all build in the public. So of course, you're not putting your best foot forward every day. You're just putting your foot forward. 1% improvement to the best of your ability, building on substantially smaller budgets. But what you get out of it is a highly vetted, a highly tested product with a substantial amount of community feedback. And when you go to launch, you don't have 0 users. Maybe you have 10,000, maybe you have 100,000. And that's the really cool thing about being an indie studio in Web3. Yeah, it's toxic, and yes, it's difficult, but the pros of building in the public are, I really do think that they outweigh the cons.
Yeah, man. I think that, building in the public is definitely fun. You do get to interact with the community, build friendships, build rapport, something that, I think goes a lot further than we really kind of sometimes understand it. And I think as the game starts getting matures and everything starts developing, I think that's where really that community building in the public kicks in to give you that extra boost of product market fit. Like, where are we going? Is it fit? Is it there a playable fit for what we want to do, for where we want to market? You mentioned a lot of things here, Evan. Kind of want to ask you, what, and it's $1 million question. Ready? What was the last game you lost real money in?
That wasn't a Web3 game, like one of our
Yeah,
products, obviously.
yeah.
Like right off of the bat, it may not be the last game, but when you ask me what's the last game you lost money in, I think RuneScape. And I think back to a couple of core memories I had where either I succumbed to a social scam and like carried some rare items on me somewhere I shouldn't have, and like somehow, for such a smart guy, another player through 2D text convinced me, lured me into the wrong place, and I lost those items, and that was really painful because it wasn't. I didn't sit there and go, I just lost 50 hours worth of work. I said, oh my god, I just lost $1,000, because I looked at the items in RuneScape as $500, $1,000. I knew how much I would spend per million GP. And now saying it out loud, I realized my true and last experience of losing money in the game was Cambria. I was a Cambria degenerate. We would run around with our guild. I was funding hundreds of dollars into my character every single day. If I got PK'd by one of these larger guilds, I would go right with, where did my guild win? Finances. Right to the auction house, brand new loadout, back into the wilderness, back to the tier 3, 4, or 5, go back and get our stuff. They 3v1'd us, we come back 6v3. And I love that. I love the risk to earn concept of these video games. And I love knowing, oh my God, I'm about to die and lose $10. Because in Cambria, it's like every time I died, I lost like $5-10 is the truth. In items. And you could go into the Discord and speak to the community and buy their gold and then use the gold in the auction house. And that was my loop. But it's an amazing feeling, risk to earn. Being worried you're about to lose it all, the feeling of potentially winning it all, truly risking it for the biscuit, the adrenaline and emotion that risk to earn and real money is built on.
No, I love that. And I love that because it really kind of segues for me to what I want to like get into is, you came into this to the Web3 space, with understanding of what the financial instruments allow you to do a game, right? And I think that BR1, the for BR1 Infinite with that title, risk the real value that you saw there with spawning and earning and killing and the whole aspect of how you kind of designed it. Where are you now as you've played Cambria, you're still building BR1 as a founder, as an entrepreneur, the vision you saw originally to the vision you see now even more expanding, and you're seeing, this could really go further. Tell us, like, how do you see it? Like, what are you seeing right now in Web3 that has really kind of like gotten you to be like, man, this is why I'm getting really more aggressive when everybody on the timeline is talking how it's dead, right? And we always say when there's blood in the streets, that's the time to buy. And it's true even here, right? When you're looking at other studios and working with other studios and acquiring studios, if there's blood in the streets, the timeline saying it's dead, guess what? That's the best time to make moves. Tell me that vision right now that you're seeing as Bravo Ready is building out an empire.
I want to start with the gaming meta, and I'll bleed into our company and I'll bleed into our products, but I want to speak to the audience as a true gamer at heart. I'm 31 years old. I'm not a bigger gamer than anybody else. I have my tens of thousands of hours in certain titles. I grew up playing games like World of Warcraft and RuneScape 14 hours a day. And it took me years to get like my spine right. But like, I swear, I used to just like this 14 hours a day, just ripping it all day, Grand Exchange. And the one thing that I really enjoyed was whaling economies. When I started playing in my younger years, I started as a player, a real player, leveling up, completing quests, and I enjoyed that progression. And as I got a bit older, because I played RuneScape from elementary into high school, into, on and off in CJEP and university. And as a player, my gameplay style evolved. I went from being the guy playing the game to a guy whaling the economy. And never before in my younger career was I in like the discussion boards of the forums. But now all of a sudden, I'm in the discussion boards and the forums, and I'm talking like math with other players. We're making like Excel sheets. And the point is, there's a progression that occurs when you're a gamer. And let me get the camera zoom in. There's 4 core profiles in gaming. You have the guy who plays, the athlete, the guy who watches, and in my older years, I've become much more of an audience member than the player. That's the truth. There's the third profile is the content creator, and goddamn, do I make a lot of content about gaming. I make more content about gaming than I watch and play. And then there's the last profile, the game investor. So let's reiterate. You have the guy who plays the game, the athlete, the guy who watches, the audience, the creator, the guy who makes content about it, and the game investor, the guy who buys the CSGO weapon or the Counter-Strike weapon cases because he wants to invest in the cases and the weapons themselves. And usually you're like one or more of these profiles. And personally, I'm really an investor these days. I'm really a creator, and I'm more so an audience member than I'm an athlete because I'm not really good at the game. And if you design incentives and functionality that move opportunities between these 4 profiles, you create a fantastic gaming ecosystem. Now, why did I go on this whole rant? Web3 gaming has been around for arguably like 4 years. You can go back as far as 2017 and see the start of Web3 gaming in its corest roots. But as we know it, the products that we've experienced, especially building on Solana, the better part of the past 4 years. And it takes a long time to build the necessary functions and products and survive financially to build this ecosystem that pushes incentives and rewards between these 4 core profiles. And here we are today in the era of consolidations, many studios going under, many studios buying up other products, people releasing fantastic technology, shipping their products. And what you will see over the next 365 days is the real Web3 dream in the bull market, that the inevitable. We say Web3 gaming is inevitable. Guys, Web3 gaming is not inevitable because we say it's inevitable. It's because there are teams showing up every day, bleeding 8 a.m. to midnight every single day in their offices to ensure Web3 gaming is inevitable.
Dude, man, very well said. And I think like it goes to once again building in the space. It's showing up in the space and knowing where you want to put your bets at, right? Because we while we see a lot of things closing down, I think that's just part of the nature of gaming and just businesses in general. I mean, if you look at the Web 2 business gaming, I mean, like Jesus, I mean, the closure rate is a pretty big number there. And I think you look at Web 3 here, right? And you look at like just some of them that have closed or more of them have closed, but there's a lot still standing. And I'm just like, man, guys, like we're not in a bad battle yet. You know what I mean?
I think people look at tokens and that gives them one opinion, and then they see a lot of closures and that gives them another. And like, yeah, sorry, this is how I cue my camera. This is how the thing moves. And you look at like Nyan and other examples of games that went under and they have a sour taste. But the reality is, you can look at a token and compare that to the success of a company. And I will speak very transparently using Ready as the example. Ready is our ecosystem token that we had launched in it's like November 26th of last year. Terrible time to be launching a token. And it was only a difficult launch. It was only an uphill battle from the day that we launched. And the reality is, as an ecosystem, as a company, we have three fully functional and three fully owned and operated, scalable, turnkey products that generate millions of dollars. Our balance sheet is irrefutable. Our revenue is irrefutable. But if you're unfamiliar with the inner mechanics of our associated company and our financials, you look at a token price and you will make your own individual assessments. But the reality is, for these various gaming token ecosystems, it does take years for them to ship their products, to build utility, token sinks that exceed the associated emissions. So you can see that upwards to the right graph that you think a great company should have. But the reality is, many of these gaming ecosystems are very successful and their tokens will pump. You had to have been patient. You had to have waited for them to ship their products, generate the revenue, whether they're doing a buyback model or whatever their model is. It takes years to generate the revenue to activate these systems, and you just invested too early.
Yeah, Evan, it's a great point you make here, right? Because I think the unfortunate aspect of it all is that crypto has trained us to have 10x or 100x returns overnight, right? It's very much what any crypto, if it doesn't go to the moon and after it launches within 1 second, like literally 1 second, like it's like, oh my god, this is a rug.
And you know what an investor like a portfolio manager targets annually, year over year, when they manage your stocks?
No, what is it?
8%. 8%. He's a legend. Legend.
And here we are in
Yeah,
crypto.
here we are.
If you don't get 8% in less than
If I don't get 8%
point,
a day, I am dumping this shitcoin and I am swapping it for blue chip on bonk. Like
yeah, but it's unfortunate that it did train us that way, because a lot of people that came into gaming expected that, right? And I think that I think it's safe to say now that everybody's saying like the Jeets are out. All this is kind of like we're going through a cleanse, and the cleanse is almost complete. I think that like it makes us start really thinking that, to what you just said, is if we start running like a real business and look at balance sheets and look at buybacks, emissions, all that stuff, well, guess what? If it will eventually start translating to your crypto price, stock price, as you would say, right? In the Web 2 space. And eventually, once you start pushing out, financial statements, if we ever get to that stage of life, well, guess what? You know what I mean? It's like, hey, oh my God, this is what I want to put my money at because it makes a lot of sense. And it goes back to the 8% annually. But the 8% annually is in Web 2. I mean, in Web 3, sure, it's going to be a lot higher, greater, we hope. But the biggest thing is that you've allocated your time and resources and your patience, which is the biggest one, patience, into something that could be transformative in the way that gaming is giving gamers a better experience.
100%. I think another key component here is In the world of gaming, again, as a core gamer, I own something like a party hat in RuneScape, and it was always worth like $1,000, $2,000. But I never thought it would be like $10,000. And I think still today these things are only worth like $1,000, $2,000. Ultimately, as we described, we've been trained to be chasing these multiples, but versus looking at the timeline and being excited about, look, this game has this KOL posting about them, or this game has this marketing campaign with insert brand here. What they should be doing is saying, yo, this game has this many users and this ARPDAU, annual revenue per daily active user. Oh, this game plans on shipping in 3 months. Let me message the founder, check the roadmap, find out, well, when are you releasing monetization functionality? When does your marketplace launch? How does the marketplace work? Are you taking token or are you taking cash? And if they started asking the business questions, it gives you a really strong understanding of, okay, when should these games start pumping, period, right? When should I buy the associated NFTs? Oh, they're adding this thing that gives me a lot of liquidity and utility for my NFTs. Sounds like those NFTs will be good in 3 months. Okay, now I could speculate on that as an investment. Or, oh, you're adding this token consumption, this token sync. When's that go live? Okay, understood. I could see why you're trading sideways for the past 6 months, because like we're waiting for this big thing. Or like, again, in the world of acquisitions or revenue generating products where they do like a buyback, you got to wait for the products to go live. You got to wait for the quarterlies to be filed for accountants to do their work. And these things, especially in Web3 companies, they don't happen month to month. It is so rare that I meet a company who does their accounting month to month. And even though we all should, they do their things quarterly, maybe even every 6 months. And that's when those buybacks will kick in. And then that's where you start to see these major updates. But I'm eager to see it. And I have big bets for a bunch of players in the gaming ecosystem. And I do believe that Web3 gaming is inevitable because I believe in the people behind it. And I expect my bags to do very well. But not financial advice. And I don't consider any games an investment. I bet on these things for the love of it. And because my joy, my game experience in RuneScape, again, I was all about whaling the economy. That's what got me excited. So in a similar capacity, the Dex is like a big grand exchange, and all of these games are like items, and I want to play the game.
I think like you even hit right now, even something even further. And first give me the laughable moment of mentioning, an accounting. I don't even know if any Web3 gaming company that has a CFO or somebody that actually handles finance. It's so mind boggling. But it is part of being early in a space that is with financial instruments. But going into a little bit of the Bravo Ready and the mindset, and look, we talked a little bit about, again, your mindset and the vision of how you're looking at this. Today's given moment, Bonk, that was a big partnership. You guys announced the game, super successful. I saw the metrics, I saw the numbers. Where do you want to see more of the gaming go with partners like this? Why did you choose a partner like this? What is it that you're seeing right now as a Web3 gaming founder that you're very bullish on to work with other integrated IPs into games like what you've built?
See, one of the most motivating factors for, well, here, I'll go full circle. So we start with Bonk. One of the most motivating things in working with an IP like Bonk is it demonstrates legitimacy of our brand. And as a studio, we want to work with more fantastic brands and companies that have great IP, that appeal to a wide demographic of gamers. And the Bonk community is the biggest cultural icon on Solana. And it only makes sense for us to work with those tier one brand names and try and capture the attention and awareness, right, of the entire Solana ecosystem. Our goal is to be the biggest Web3 gaming ecosystem on Solana, and then we'll continue from there. I keep my goal simple. I'm not going to say all of Web3. I'm not going to say all the blockchains. Yeah, we start with Solana and we pave our way to success. The launch of Bonk Arena demonstrated that by working with the right tier one partners, you could capture a substantial amount of the active wallets in that ecosystem. And I think we did like 70,000 connections in the first 2 weeks directly through Phantom. It's crazy. Phantom was generous enough to also put us on the front page of the Discovery, like front center of the Discovery page on the Phantom wallet. 15 million users on Phantom. And you work with the right partners, and you see a high level of traffic to your product. You get a high level of quality assurance and testing, and you build great experiences. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with those guys because we made a fantastic user experience.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think like it's really exciting to see, right? As more companies of that size of a Phantom and a Bonk are partnering with games, right? Especially after we just mentioned how we see the timelines being dead, but the use cases for gaming is starting to get more clear, and we're starting to be able to finally see it, touch it, play it. You know, these things that you haven't been able to do for quite some time because they were dreams and ideas and Twitter spaces of us yelling and saying, "Oh, this is what it can do," but not no one actually being able to physically actually play it. And now we're finally like, boom, here we are, like actually physically playing with these iconic names.
Bonk Arena is an accessible game, and that's what makes it a good marketing activation, because anybody who has Phantom can play. And if you hold Bonk, you likely have Phantom. In a similar capacity, we also have a Bonk engagement with Honeyland. Fantastic partnership for playing Honeyland. You're about to get a huge Bonk airdrop, based on, if you're a certified beekeeper, and I can explain what all of that means later. But by working with the right partners, and Honeyland is a perfect example of this. You have Honeyland that is a Web3 game with a token. And although if you're a regular gamer playing this on your phone, you may not have realized that the HXD in the game token, that's also a Web3 token. And price is pumping. Did like fantastic week. Well, we'll say that much. Fantastic week. And when you do a partnership with a group like Bonk, well, we know that everybody who holds Bonk is a token advocate, somebody who's interested in tokens. Honeyland is a mobile game with a token. If they see HXD is pumping and it comes from a game that has token emissions, I have a very high likelihood of converting any Bonk holders that are interested in mobile games to potentially downloading this game and being an HXD supporter. And that's cool. Target your audience where they are. Try and push for a lower cost of conversion with a hyper efficient activation with the right partners.
Yeah, man. I think like even going deep into that right there, right? Like so what did give you the mindset to look at Honeyland, right? What was it that really sparked that conversation for you at Bravo Ready to say, okay, like, hey, let's move on to the next, this opportunity that stands in front of us. Again, knowing where the space is. This is things that, like I say all the time, like, we have to make bold moves. We have to make moves when no one else is doing them, because this is where, legends are born, we say, right? And essentially, like, yeah, essentially this is a bold move here, but there is such more to it because you've done the due diligence, you've done the homework, you've already tested this with a two games now. You're moving on to your third game. I don't want to say moving on, that's wrong. Sorry. You're expanding to a third game, and you're expanding to a third game that has users, that has a workflow of the economy,
Yeah.
a game loop.
George, Honeyland is the most played game on Solana. At 4,000 daily active users, there is no game with more daily actives than Honeyland.
There you go. So tell me, like, exactly that's exactly how do you see that? Like, why do you see it being now the next chapter of Bravo Ready to scale up? Like, where do you see that, like,
Okay, so
idea for
I'll,
tuition?
I'll tell you about the acquisition, why we did it, and we'll talk about the strategy, how it plugs into the greater Ready ecosystem as a whole. And we're going to take it back to 2023, right before the FTX crisis. And the boys from Honeyland, they've always been our peers. They've been super supportive. They've introduced us to investors over the years. Whenever there was a gaming event, we got to meet up in person, do Korean barbecue. Love these guys. And in Web3 gaming, the timeline is full of smoke and mirrors. Everybody is pushing vanity metrics. There are questing platforms, there are KOLs, and it is near impossible, truly near impossible, to know where do you stand in the great competitive leaderboard of Web3 games. And it's a very, it really hits your morale as a founder. You know, you're spending millions of dollars, thousands of hours, you're not paying yourself. And I know that many founders feel the same way. So a long time ago, we started to develop friendships and being very transparent with each other. And Honeyland was one of these groups where even if we both look like $100 million on the timeline, we would always be comfortable sharing our finances, sharing our obstacles, whether they were financial, technical, social. And founders therapy is something that I recommend for everybody. Super constructive. It is the best way to work through your issues. Sometimes you feel like you're the only person who's addressing this obstacle. 1 million founders have done it before you, it turns out, and you really should find out how they fixed it because you'll save yourself a lot of time and embarrassment. And that's the type of relationship we had with these guys forever. So since 2023, we've always been close, and I love this product. One of the most exciting things about Honeyland is if you download this game from the App Store, you do not realize it's a Web3 game. You are playing with training bees, and you have HXD token in your account that you're earning. You never set up a phantom wallet to make it happen. You're able to double tap with your phone with Apple Pay, buy token. Crazy. These guys were so ahead of their curve. So I was always very impressed. And they've always been this monstrous hidden gem in our ecosystem. The game with the most daily active users, and nobody talks about it. No, because they didn't pay the cabal. So nobody realized this is one of the biggest hidden gems on the timeline. And about 3 months ago, we started to discuss the acquisition. And one immediate opportunity, and for the guys in the audience, because I've told the story 100 times this week, I'm trying to go like a different side of the story. Keep it new and fresh for you guys. One of the immediate opportunities that we saw was when you have 4,000 daily active users, your hosting cost is through the roof. And that's true of any successful and popular game. And there were places like the hosting costs where we were able to substantially reduce their overhead through an acquisition. So by acquiring them, there's many like subscriptions and services that we already pay for, that they also pay for, that we get to remove, right? We don't need to pay for the same Unity bill and pay for Gitbook twice. And all of these things, they add up. And when you include the reduction that we could include on hosting, it's truly tens of thousands of dollars. Determining that Honeyland was substantially more profitable in our hands. And when we saw that math and we cranked the Excels, it really was a slam dunk opportunity because through our economies of scale, this game is immediately profitable, which means we could better allocate funds towards development and improvements in the product itself. And another big angle of it is Honeyland is this amazing piece of technology. And it has core components like these fiat on-ramps that I described, and built-in marketplaces and other functions that we just don't have at Bravo already. We don't have them in BR1. We don't have them in Bonk Arena or Mini Arena. And through this acquisition, I'm actually saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in development dollars and hours of time because now we have these components that we could build from. And besides those items, the Honeyland team does bring their own new level of excellence. No one writes Medium articles and has communications the way that this team does. Really every day I'm impressed more and more by their community and how active they are and really how organized the cadence these guys have. They might as well have been a public company. Everything was so turnkey and perfect and well documented. And in aggregate, that made this deal very obvious for us. And these were people we've always loved and enjoyed working with and would love to work with in a more close capacity. And by doing this marriage, all of the elements of our ecosystem won.
Yeah, no, I think congratulations to you and your team. And this is such a massive, massive news. And it's really great to see it from a Web3 perspective in gaming, that there is this kind of conversations happening behind closed doors. There are people trying to help each other. There are acquisitions happening to keep building on these game developer empires that there are and being able to build them right and not just wasting money to say, right? Because we've seen that a lot in Web3 as well, where, it's just, hey, let's go buy it, and there's no like actual due diligence or use case for them. But it's very, very clear here that you've kind of like had a
George,
whole
I'm super
checklist.
cheap. Like I'll say it. I'll say it on the live for everyone in the audience. I am the hardest person to squeeze for like $10,000. I hate paying for like marketing and activations and influencers unless we have some sort of like guarantee of conversions. And obviously, in my CEO capacity, it's my job to ensure money goes really far. So as somebody who's so aggressive and data oriented when it comes to spending even $10,000, and you can imagine how much went in, thought and due diligence went into this acquisition, and it really is a slam dunk. Like these guys are the best team on Solana. Now because we're all one team, we are the greatest team on Solana. There is a reason that they have the greatest amount of DAUs and no one talks about them, because they don't need anyone to talk about them. They were just winning silently.
And that is, I think, even more important, right? When you're winning silently, because is the noise worth it sometimes, right? And I think that like sometimes we see the noise on the headlines, and maybe sometimes it does more bad than good, right? Almost in the sense. And so I would say that like going forward, the next 6 months, next 12 months, the bull market could be here for another 6 months, or it could be here, it ends tomorrow. You guys are still very much showing up every single day and building. What are you seeing now from Bravo Ready? Honeyland acquisition's done, and Honeyland team is still building every day. BR1 is still building, the arena is still building. Where do you keep going next? Where do you want to start? Are you starting to look at like cross pollinations between the economies? Are you starting to do something different with Web3 gaming? Because we have a lot of abilities to bring something different in game experience in the economy token like Bravo Ready is, and be able to cross pollinate. What are your thoughts here? Like, what are you thinking the next 6 months to a year that bring features that we haven't seen yet in Web3?
So I'm going to talk about Ready as an ecosystem. And as a company, we are always monetizing our games. We're always licensing out our technology, and we're always white labeling our products. And we're also always publishing and chasing investment. In the world of licensing, we have all of these amazing pieces of technology, we have all these games. And within the games, there are segments of code like the pay to spawn, kill to earn technology, the account systems, deposit withdraw systems, forensic tooling, banking systems, and truly everything that makes BR1, Mini Arena, or Honeyland. And my goal is to go into each of these individual assets, and we've already been doing this, but continue to segment out these core pieces of infrastructure: the in-game marketplace on web, the in-game marketplace in-game, the loot box experience, and create an open library on Solana where other builders can show up, take these components, build their games substantially faster, substantially cheaper, without the risk of burning their own capital. I believe that if we'd all worked together 3 years ago, many studios wouldn't have gone bankrupt. We all developed the same things in many regards. We all made a marketplace and a store, and we made like various API frameworks and models. And if we had divided and conquered, we all could have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. It's not too late. As we go to build this library of available assets for game developers on Solana, my goal is also to make our games, the products themselves, accessible to builders as a jumping off point. So, give you the example. Hopefully I piqued your attention. Imagine I turned to you and I said, I see you want to make a game on Solana. Let me give you a $4.5 million jumping off point. $4.5 million jumping off point. What do you mean? Say, I will give you our game BR1 Infinite, and all you have to do is strip back functionality, remove characters, maps, change front end, add some new functions. The point is, you're starting from a fully scalable and turnkey project that works. And instead of spending 3 years on development and $3 million, you could spend 3 months and $250,000 and have a fully functional and scalable $5 million game where previously you would have had to risk it all. If this is an opportunity that you think appeals to you as a builder, it is open to everybody, but you need to be a very talented and committed builder. We have an audit process. And if it makes sense, we would love to have you building with our assets in the Ready ecosystem. And if we bring in more builders to the Ready ecosystem building on our products, we'll continue to expand and we'll achieve that goal of being the biggest Web3 gaming ecosystem on Solana.
You have me trying to Google what that popular island show or whatever everybody's like talking about on the timelines right now,
Love
because
Island?
yeah, Love Island, because now we got to create the Founders Island and bring all the founders in and create like some sort of.
My belief is we don't need to all go raise $100 million. Again, if you had $1 million cash, I will give you a $4.5 million product to jump up to start from. You have everything you need. Work on the fun part, design and marketing. And if for $1 million, you can't take your game to market, then maybe it didn't make sense to begin with, but you only risked that small amount of capital versus the 4.5 that it takes to build the whole engine and everything in between. Hopefully this way on Solana, we see expedited growth of gaming and more builders who are willing to build on this space. And Solana, I hope you will support the endeavor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's exactly like, I think huge here is trying to figure out better ways to communicate, right? Like, I think you just said it, like talking behind closed doors with more founders is a key. And I think like also sharing it publicly here on these type of channels is important, because there are people saying, oh man, like we should definitely do that. Gives them the courage, right? Like sometimes, I think like a lot of times, and I'll say this, I may not be the most unshy guy, but I am pretty shy sometimes when I have to like send a cold DM, and I'm like, hopefully it gets perceived right now the right way. And on top of it, my character personality, sometimes people don't get it. Like my jokes, my dad jokes are not funny to everybody. So I think like it's good to have these conversations and say it out, like, hey, how are things working behind closed doors? What are we doing? What are the obstacles? But how are we winning ultimately? And I think that's just it right here. Look, I know we're coming around our top of the hour here. My last $1 million question to you. Magic 8 Ball at the Bravo Ready headquarters. What's the tagline? What's the headline that you want to see in the next 6 months come out of Bravo Ready that you are very much all have on that whiteboard as the number one goal?
I've been building in gaming since 2017. I sold my last esports wagering company in 2020 to a public company. And since we started the nickname for our first product, terrible. It was battlebus.net, I think was our first domain. Ungodly. But since we started in the video game space, we always had one saying. And more so than ever is that saying kind of ringing true. And I imagine in 6 months, it will really be a fact. George, the future of gaming is now, brother. I appreciate you giving us the time today.
Yeah, man. And hopefully we'll catch you at some event, because I've caught your colleagues, I've caught your, other team members, and, they've given me merch. So I've been very grateful. Actually, I just moved, so I'm wearing the same clothes over and over again until I find what box my clothes is in. But that's a whole different conversation. But, hopefully we get to Crossroads and we'll do an in real life interview with Evan Ryer. I'd love to bring you back on. It's been an awesome show. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're going to go back to build. I know you're going to go back to turn those fans on, because it is damn hot. But Evan, how do we find you? How do we make sure we stay plugged in with everything you're building?
Could I do the sign off?
Go for it.
All right, guys. My real name is Evan Ryer, but on all socials, you may know me as Ryan Ever. If you have any questions, feedback, or you just want to talk, slide into my DMs, email me, ryan@br1game.com. I'm at Ryan Ever on all socials. I answer every message. This has been a gaming exclusive. If I could promise you one thing, it's that the future of gaming is now. If you've been patient, if you've been riding along for the Web3 journey, you've seen the ups and downs. But now as the dust settles, there is one model overall that is making sense, and it is risk to earn. George, I appreciate you. Gaming on Solana. Run it back, boys. Thanks for having me.
Take care, brother.